audio audible now?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
wonderful.
yes. Great.
Yeah.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Filecoin Core Devs call number 57, where I am in Frankfurt, Germany. It is just about 2:04 a.m. I am hoping you're all, I know, I'm hoping you've all had a lovely week. Today, we have just a number of things to discuss. It was tough gathering the agenda for this month's call, but here we are. We have the minor protocol change dependencies. I'm not sure if Alex is here yet. He is supposed to take that discussion. And then Shyam would help us walk us through the sector terminations discussions. I also don't know if Afri is here today, just to discuss NV19, celebrate, and general chit chat about how that went and any feedback. And then we will take final housekeeping and Q&A, and hopefully I can go to bed. All right. Without further ado, let me just double check that Alex isn't here. Alex, are you here? I don't think so. Shyam, over to you. I will.
Sure.
Yeah.
Should I maybe share my screen?
I am sharing it already. Do you have a
Sure.
separate slide you wanted to show us today?
Okay, maybe we can start with the second slide first, the next one.
Okay.
Move the design first.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, right here. So basically, we've started a discussion on the recent trends that we've detected in sector terminations. So the short TLDR basically is that we've seen a steady increase in the network terminations. Maybe we can go into the previous figure in the previous slide to kind of show this. So we've basically captured some historical data, and we've visualized this better to see how this trend has been changing over time. So there are two levels in which we've done this. The first one is we've looked at the daily fraction of raw byte power terminating, as well as the raw byte power itself in measured in TIB. And what we basically noticed is the months between July 2022 to March 2023, the network has actually recorded higher values for both the daily fraction of raw byte power terminating as well as the raw byte power terminating itself than the past year and a half. And what we kind of done is we've looked at this trend, and we wanted to ask ourselves a question that if the present network conditions continue, and if we just simply fit this trend into the data, what can we expect in the coming months? What can we expect in terms of what this number will look like into the future? And we've also obtained some projections to support this answer, and we see that the trend is kind of increasing. And if things continue to go in the current trajectory, we basically expect the terminations to just go up in the coming months. So maybe can we go to the next slide again? Yeah, so basically the TLDR was that, okay, we've noticed that there's a steady increase in network terminations, and we don't expect this to be any different, given the present network conditions and if things go in the current trajectory. And what we've also done is we've kind of looked into the historical context of the termination fees to understand what were the design principles that were used, or the guiding principles used to come up with the present fee structure. And we noticed that the fee structure was basically designed in the context of 6-month sectors. So the idea that was used was that for a sector of 6 months, the termination fees were designed keeping in mind that it makes sense to cap it at half the lifetime earnings for 180-day sector, which is why we have the 90-day block rewards cap when we look at the current termination fee structure, but then we realized that this continued to stay the same even after the maximum sector lifetime was kind of revised, and even after we've seen a large number of sectors of maximum duration 1 year and 1.5 year onboarded to the network. So the next steps that we wanted to kind of prompt this discussion is to, number one, discuss if there is a problem to solve. Does the community think that this is something that is alarming? This is something that we want to devote our resources to? And if the answer is yes, the next steps would be to discuss possible improvements as to what we can do to address an issue. So this is keeping that in mind. We started a GitHub discussion to see if we can get some consensus as a community as to the relevance of this problem and get some ideas on potential improvements. Maybe we can go to the next slide. And so right now, so we were really happy that the discussion has gained a lot of traction, and there's been a lot of activities from multiple stakeholders over the past few days. So some of the recurrent themes in the discussion and some of the suggestions that were put forth was that termination fees for CC sector should be reduced, and this would potentially have an increased rate of onboarding. Similarly, another common theme was that deal sectors, for deal sectors, it's better to let the market dictate the terms to the deal collateral. And one more key idea that kind of
You what?
And kept.
It's okay. They'll die.
Hey, Scott, you're unmuted, FYI.
Maybe. Go fight the bad guys.
Lucky, maybe you can.
Thanks for that. And one more sort of idea was that having no bias in termination fees at a sector level, and instead of maybe introducing the fee at an SP level, and one more thing that stood out was to simplify the mechanism in which the fees are computed. So what we've noticed that most of the comments and most of the discussions is basically based on hypothesis and what would happen in the different scenarios. And so all these recurrent themes, and so like every idea that was posed, we can basically open up new discussions. For instance, when for the suggestion that termination fees for CC sector should be reduced to increase the rate of onboarding, we can open up another question and say that what would this mean in terms of volatility of the storage power in the network, given that we're not merely just another layer 1 blockchain, but more than that, we're a layer 1 blockchain with a specific purpose. What does volatility in storage power mean? And similarly, in terms of the suggestions along the lines of letting the market dictate the terms to deal collateral, I guess we can pose another question and to ask if the market at its current stage is mature enough to be able to dictate its own terms, and if the deal collateral is effectively being used. So we've noticed that what in terms of concrete next steps is very clear what needs to be done. So we need to have concrete evidence on the outcomes of these what-if scenarios. And before we do that, the discussion is still going to completely, be hypothetical, and we won't have any, concrete grounds to navigate the discussion further and develop any of the ideas that have been presented. And so as a next step, the Crypto Lab is aiming to, use agent-based models as a way to do this. And we basically want to use these models to assess the termination fee effect on network power stability and test out some of the ideas that have been brought up in the discussion itself, and use that as a guide to further navigate this discussion and see what the community feels about this. I think that's pretty much all I have prepared for today. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I think, yes, I agree. It's been a trending topic these days, and I've been monitoring the conversations. Do we have any question or comments, contribution from anyone? Yes, Molly.
I think you should probably has one too, but I think it might help us try and decompose this a little bit into Like what are the factors that are good for the network, good for the clients of Filecoin, that make this whole network stronger and better for reliable, robust storage, which, like, if you're not going to get robust storage out of Filecoin, like, dude, I don't even know what we're trying to do here. Like, that's definitely one of our goals. And if we can't do that, we're not going to compete well with anyone else who's providing a cloud storage solution. Because, we're trying to be even more robust and long-term and verifiable about the storage we're creating. And so I think making it, like, I would decompose some of the problems, like, question: is there a concern about robustness of storage due to terminations in the network right now? Is this 100% CC sectors, which are maybe a little bit more fungible, or are there deals where data is dropping out of the network due to storage, due to terminations? That's more concerning. So that's like point A. Point B is raw byte power, or like, are all of the other SPs who are making commitments to the network, is it incentive aligned the way that we otherwise, like, the termination fee that is applied, does that positively impact everyone who continues to commit to the network? Enough fee should be burned when someone does a termination event that everyone else, all of the other storage providers and all of the clients who are participating, are now better off because they have burned a chunk of the tokens. So, like, all of us who are continuing to fight for the success of this network should be better off because, you decided to get out, you decided to not continue to participate, but now the network is stronger despite the fact that you have uncommitted a chunk of your resources from the network. And so I think that keeps the incentive alignment for all of us of, making this network better. We want everyone to be incentive aligned with building a strong network together. And so I think that would be a question: is there a good incentive throughout the life cycle of both a CC or a deals sector to that all of the other participants, that you're incentive aligned with strong, robust like commitment to the network and making the network stronger? Even if you get out, the network is still stronger because of that. And I guess I completely agree with you. As we start having longer term sectors on the network, it might be like there might be literally a bug here where our termination fee literally was never planned around having more than 1.5 year sectors. I think it's like not super robust to change, for example, when there was all of the, duration multiplier conversations, was like, yep, we're going to definitely need to proportionally increase our termination fee as we start having longer term deals, because there is increased risk there. And we don't want people who are going to be, faking that longer term commitment to the network and aren't, putting up resources for it. And so I guess those I would decompose as like kind of 3 separate problems that do all have inputs into what would be the right termination fee structure. But right now, like, if we don't decompose the problems and be like, great, this is the sub problems we're trying to solve, then it's a little bit like, hey, we project. And I think it's a little bit fuzzy, these projection numbers right now, because from what I see, like, there is an increase, but it's like not a smooth increase. It's like choppy and sporadic, and it's totally based on market changes. And like, I don't know how much I believe the projection, honestly, like, because I think it takes a lot of variables to do any projection like this accurately. I think likely there will be increases in the future because economics are hard right now. But I would want us to decompose the problems such that we design a good solution that accounts for the various subproblems. So that would be like my feedback over the top. I would also probably not just take like some of the themes in current discussions, like those are things that people are asking for, but they are not necessarily good things that align with, good, strong network overall. For example, the like, great, make terminations really low, so it's really easy for me to like commit and then uncommit and like be unreliable commitments to the network. It's like, well, if you're going to be unreliable, then we should also be like, the network cares about you less and should be funding you less. And so you should get a different amount of rewards or different profile of rewards if you're going to get lower terminations or some, like, I don't really buy the argument of like, make it really easy to add sectors, but make it really easy for those sectors to leave. That just ends up with the volatility that you see in Bitcoin without having actually a good data storage platform. So those are my thoughts based on kind of the discussion you've proposed so far.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I think they were very useful. So in terms of decomposing the problem, I think that's pretty much what we've also kind of been, striving to do. We've been, doing some more analysis to understand about how many of these terminations are through CC sectors, through deal sectors, and so on. And with regards to the network level perspective, that's one thing that we haven't looked at yet. But then it totally makes a lot of sense to do that, and that's something we'll definitely be looking to. Yeah, thank you so much for the feedback and the suggestion. We'll definitely look to incorporate this and hopefully guide the discussion a little better and not keep it as open-ended.
Piyush, did you want to say something on this? Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yes, please. Yeah, first off, thank you very much, Shyam, for presenting this. It makes me I'm very glad to know that there are folks and teams actively monitoring this kind of thing, because I know that I personally, and perhaps my team more broadly, aren't paying attention to these things as much, but they're obviously very, very important. So thank you. Yeah, so I think I broadly agree with basically everything Molly said. To her last point, yeah, I also want to +1 that yeah, some of the ideas that will arise from a discussion like this are potentially, I would personally describe them as just bad ideas. Filecoin, by definition, is not a network that we want people to be hopping on and off every time as they please. That is not the point of Filecoin, and if that's what you want, that's not the right network for it. The other thing is, I think all of this stuff is very, very complicated, much more complicated than potentially the kind of core engineering side of things that a lot of us work on, and therefore much more easier to get wrong. And so certainly, finicky things that we really need to like vet every idea thoroughly and think through and analyze, which I feel confident that we'll do. To kind of the motivating discussion, I have a couple of thoughts. I think I agree with Molly that I think a question like this kind of gets decomposed along a few different axes. An important one is the product one that Molly mentioned. A second one that comes to mind for me is kind of like network security itself. There is a point where if sufficient sectors were terminated, Filecoin as a network would become less secure in that it would be easier to attack by some bad actor. I think we're very, very far from that point. But that is one of the factors to keep in mind when considering this kind of question, I think. And the third point is obviously the crypto economic factor, which I'm sure you folks have top of mind. But yeah, so I think my suggestion, I guess I'd say is, I think the single best thing we can do, and you mentioned that you're already starting to do this or already doing this, is try to find patterns in the sectors that are being terminated. As Molly pointed out, it's fairly, it's not a smooth curve or some, so it's a little jagged. But I would be interested in seeing, CC sectors versus deal sectors, short-term sectors versus long-term sectors. The other question is when these sectors were committed. I always have a hard time understanding the math of the termination penalty, but my understanding is termination penalties per sectors have potentially changed over time. So maybe these are just, because of network conditions today, these are just sectors that are, it is rational to terminate, but if the majority of sectors are not in that category, then potentially we have less of a problem. I'm wildly speculating here. I don't actually know what the status is. But I do think that kind of like almost pattern detection is probably in my opinion is a really good thing to do here. The other thing that I don't know if this is feasible or not, potentially even harder to do, is if we know which storage providers these are, I would be interested in just kind of asking them. Obviously it's totally within folks' right to terminate their sectors, but I would be interested in hearing a little bit more about why they're choosing to make that decision. If it's just crypto economic or just economic factors, as Molly said, that I can totally understand that. But if there is something that we can kind of do at the protocol level to make it easier for them to stay, because that will likely just be an improvement anyway, then that could be an interesting impetus for us to just improve Filecoin more generally. Yeah, those are my thoughts. I don't have anything more concrete than that, unfortunately. But yeah, this is tricky stuff. So I'm glad that we're monitoring it and working on it.
Thanks. So back to you, Molly.
Yeah, I thank you for that last idea, just because it triggered one that I've been having, which was it could be really interesting to, like, especially for a deals sector, to waive the termination fee if someone else kind of like replicates, if you are able to pass off your deal to some other storage provider, such that, you know, it's like, great, you know, things are hard, I'm going out of business, or I'm moving to some other area or something, and now I want to transfer this sector to someone else, and they're going to keep these deals going, and then now I get to waive the termination fee, and I can, you know, hand off the responsibility to some other storage provider who can continue that forward. I don't know, that's maybe a question. It may or may not actually affect termination fee. It might be other protocol hooks that we could do that would support that sort of movement between storage providers. But in a landscape where we might see some amount of consolidation, or we might, you know, expect storage providers to want to have that flexibility of like, great, you're, you know, how are we rebalancing the thing that Filecoin is trying to do within this ecosystem, even where individuals might need to cycle, making it easy for that cycling to happen at a protocol level, and creating an incentive for us to maintain good, robust storage, even as individuals might shift behind the scenes. I imagine that some of this might be tricky under the hood, but like, it could be interesting to find a way to get around avoid termination fees, not make people subject to termination or deal termination fees if the data ends up being maintained in the network in some way or transferred to some other responsible SP.
Yeah, I agree, and that's the kind of innovative ideas that we can try to generate based on what's motivating some of the factors here.
I'm happy we have Alex.
Ethan, did you have a hand? I saw you unmuted.
Oh yeah, I just want to say,
Okay.
yeah, thanks for these suggestions and ideas. I think we'll definitely take them forward, and yeah, a lot to work with. Thank you.
Great. Are there final thoughts on this or comments from anyone else? No. I will be taking it back now to Alex, now that he is here with us to discuss minor protocol change dependencies. Over to you, Alex, if you're ready.
Yeah, thank you very much. And sorry, I missed the start of this meeting. I just took a break at the wrong time and missed the reminder. Thanks. This is going to be generally brief. I have been working on trying to put together. There's a bunch of different ideas many of these have been floating around for quite some time. That are different protocol changes. They're generally motivated by improving utility in one way or the other, making things simpler or cheaper or possible. Yeah, mostly independent and not necessarily related, but some of them are related, often through dependency relationships. And so I've been trying to put these things together to show, it's not exactly a roadmap, but this is just to find some way to present that all these potential changes exist, and they exist in some relationship to each other, and to share that knowledge with core devs and more broadly. So this is not most of these don't exist in the sense of like a formal FIP specification. Some of them have FIP discussions, some of them are just ideas that float around between actor developers and Lotus team and CryptoNet, and haven't been written up in detail yet. But there does form these things. This shows us two different charts here. There's sort of a fluke that it shows us two different charts. There's one set that depend on each other, another set that don't, and it so happens that this set on the right all result in changes to the minor API, and the set on the left don't. But they should sort of be seen as one big bucket of potential changes. I don't want to take too much time here, again, because we haven't done the work to necessarily write up lots of these in detail. I don't want to spend time describing it here when we need to go write it up anyway. The proof fees one, though, has been written up in FIP discussions. So some of these that link to FIP discussions are well written up. And thanks to Axe's recent work, the sort of link between proof fees and pseudo gas lanes has now become more clear, and how those can be complementary things to getting towards gas charging mechanisms that protect the core storage operations while still allowing base fees to fluctuate a lot for application level things, while also sort of preserving a constant network revenue for the network. Then a different set towards making the storage what a miner can put in a sector more flexible. Currently, there's only one way a miner can put something is permitted to put some data in a sector, and that is to do a deal on the built-in market. That is limiting to a bunch of data applications, not just markets, but data DAOs, other kinds of applications that we can imagine on the FVM. Having to do a deal with the built-in market in order to do anything with storage is limiting and costly. Okay, and then on the right-hand side of this chart, there's a set of changes that are called out here as things that would result in a change to the APIs that a miner operator interacts with when they're onboarding storage. And so the main point of calling these out is that API change is costly. It's operational cost and risk for NSPs. It's work they have to do. And so we don't want to change the APIs that they use very often. And so if we can make one change make one API change with future functionality in mind, then we can sort of reduce the total cost and pain for storage providers by doing this. And so I think here we can make one minor API change that would support the future implementation of any of those things that are pointing at it in the chart. Although of course it's one big point of sort of doing this is to figure out if there's other things. This is my brain dump. If there are other changes that would cause minor API changes, or other protocol changes that have been discussed that I've omitted here that are related to utility that might have some dependency relationship on these other ones, like you need to come first or need to come after. I think my sort of biggest request here is to help surface other things that I might have missed in this chart, so that we can have this idea of how potential improvements relate to each other, which informs some amount of sequencing for them. None of this is meant to imply any priority, but the dependency arrows do imply a sequencing that we'd probably have to take. That's it. I'll let me turn it to questions. Perhaps most productive is to turn it to Q&A anyone has about this.
Any question?
Otherwise, I'll leave it for people to click follow the links in the slide to find the background on any of these changes that are here, potential changes.
Yeah, I'll try to send the links across tomorrow so that you all can take some time. But are there immediate questions? No?
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for
Alex.
doing this. Oh, sorry, I just want to say thank you for doing this. It's definitely useful. I have not been paying enough attention to most of these ideas lately. I'm going to I need some time to kind of grok this in order to either provide feedback or maybe, point out new dependencies or challenge any of the existing dependency connections here. But I do think it's useful. I feel like for me personally, the biggest question mark is kind of what you said about prioritization and how we as Filecoin developers can go about figuring out what the most impactful things are. But that is a much harder question to answer. I'm not sure, kind of what our path of attack should be in order to achieve the goals that we as core devs say we have.
Yeah, great. Me neither. I consider this sort of as an input into us figuring that out.
Yes, Deep.
I just wanted to make a short comment that I think this view is actually very, very helpful. I hear about these ideas often in isolation, and so presenting them in this way makes sense to me and is helpful to me. Alex, I also want to say thanks for doing the whole investigation stuff that you have done around some of these things and sharing conversations and notes. It's been very helpful to get additional perspective and how to approach some of this stuff. I am personally very interested in the conversation around the gas lane stuff because I think it has been recently brought forward as a pain point, and as we continue to explore different use cases on the network, there is some sense in thinking about how we want to ensure that resources are being dedicated in a fair way and people are better able to estimate what it costs to do certain types of things. So I'll personally be tuning a little bit more into that proposal over the next couple of weeks. Thanks again.
Molly?
Yes, same boat as others in terms of needing to, like, I find this view very useful, but I think I might find it a little like the data that I feel like I'm missing in connection to it is like, personally, half of these words don't mean anything to me. And I don't know why pseudo gas lanes or something, like, you know, what motivates each of these different things. And so that overlaying of why is this set of things important? Like, why does this set of things all get connected to each other? And, you know, reasoning through like, okay, well, like from my vantage point, like this 50% of this half of a cycle would be like really high value. And that implies this prerequisite. So like, okay, that's really interesting. But I don't know quite how to add that to a visualization like this, unless it also has like, you know, metadata underneath of like, you know, tagline, this unlocks, you know, this valuable thing or something like that. But that personally would make it a chunk easier for me to parse these different things. As it is, I feel like I'm going to just go and read some docs and hopefully come back with more thoughts. But some of these write-ups are pretty chunky. And so like the more that we can bundle down and tie these things to the priorities that they affect, that'd be really useful as well.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I hear that. The Notion page linked at the bottom right there has a little bit more, but not a lot more. I tried intentionally here not to do my usual thing, which would have been to write like a 10-page document instead of doing this diagram. So that does mean that a lot of the details are missing. And you know, something else. Yeah, I 100%. And this isn't all we need to be able to make priority decisions.
Yes, Ayush.
Yeah, I think Molly brings up an interesting point. This is a great high-level view. And for a lower level view, or for the lowest level of view, you know, all of the individual, so for instance, pseudo gas lanes, I know has a lot of conversations have already happened and stuff has been written down. For that more intermediary view that explains a little bit more why we might want some of these things, I do wonder if perhaps the best thing to do there would be for us collectively as core devs to kind of identify, like some goals that we're trying to achieve, that we can then at least loosely claim that, say, network data collateral will achieve the goal of, I don't know, it's easier to onboard storage on the Filecoin, or pick any other item on this board and say it achieves the goal of, I don't know, more interesting storage contract use cases being built on Filecoin or something like that. But that does require us to at least identify some list of concrete goals that we can at least generally say X leads to Y. Because right now that is a little more difficult to do. We could argue each of these individually what their impact would have, and that would be useful. But yeah, I do think having a separate view of like, here are the things we want Filecoin to achieve, and then saying this leads to 3 of those 5 things. This doesn't lead to any of them at all, but it's interesting in and of itself, and so on. Could be a good intermediary view. But I don't know that we have all of the information necessary to use that yet. So it's more an idea than anything else.
Yeah, I think very on board with that. A challenge here that makes some of this hard, I think, generally is that there's not like one thing. There's not like one clear goal or one clear thing at the end of a dependency chain that we're trying to reach. This thing is this collection of small things which all together add up to a much more capable system, but it's very hard to put one as the end point or the motivating reason to get there. This is there's no silver bullet. There's not always one thing we're going for that's going to unlock a whole lot of stuff, or like not in this view, right? There are other things that maybe have that property that are not in view here. But that does make it hard. It's in my mind, it's sort of a point of like, well, if we do all of this stuff, then we're in a better place, and there are ways I can qualify what better means there. But that doesn't help decide sort of which ones are more important than others.
Thanks, Alex. Stephen, I see your hand. Well, I see you're unmuted. Do you want to say something?
Hello. I think this is very useful, and I really like this is to simplify the the whole thing, because I think the Filecoin actually the design and implementation are kind of complex and make the storage providers and also the ecosystem participants kind of hard to understand the whole thing. I would think that we make it simple is very important, and this is one thing I want to mention here, and also here I can say something is actually a start to make the Filecoin more useful than before, and we're trying to solve more issues about to onboarding more data, and also to boost the ecosystem. Based on this, I would think that this is only a step. We're working on this, but I still think that we need to think some fundamental change about the mechanism, and keep that in mind, because I'm thinking about for the Filecoin is not like other blockchain, because Filecoin need to take a lot of resource or bandwidth to do storage proof and verification, and also to have to do the deal handling. So that will really take a lot of bandwidth of network. So while we support in FBM, and while we support a lot of smart contract, you will say that the storage proof and also the deal handling will actually compete with the user-defined actors. And also, as we mentioned before, the Filecoin network actually has the block time. The block time is actually 30 seconds, which is kind of long. We want to shorten that. I would think that if we keep this design, it will be very hard for us to adopt many user-defined actors, and to support high TPS, and also at the same time to support a lot of storage and a lot of deals. So we need to think about some other things. For example, maybe to learn something from Ethereum, or we may have the we may separate the storage proofing aside from the FVM, to separate them into different consensus, different chain, and also connect them together as a bundle. I'm not sure how we could do this to make it better, but I think that would be a way to yeah, we need to keep thinking of this. Yeah, for the Filecoin's future development. Okay.
Thanks, Stephen. Are you sure? I can see your hand still up. Okay. I don't know if you wanted.
Sorry, I did forget to lower that.
Okay.
Given that I unmuted, I will say I think Stephen raised a very good point. I'll just quickly add,
Yeah.
Filecoin is also unique in that we do have a message that needs to land on chain, like a transaction that has to land. Our submit window post messages, whether you like it or not. So that's not a you can choose to send it at some other time. That's not a it's a mandatory message, which further complicates things. It's fine today, but I think there are very real kind of long-term and scalability challenges that are raised. The good news is a lot of the ideas on this board that we're looking at aim to solve those challenges. But yeah, I think Stephen raised a really good point.
Thanks. I heard someone else speaking. I'm not sure if there was someone else trying to say something. No. All right then. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Alex. I think with that, we're moving back to you, Ayush, for general thoughts around the Lightning upgrade.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm disappointed that Afri couldn't make it, but I'm happy to quickly chat about this. So primarily what I want to do is kind of thank everyone, and I really mean everyone, like a lot of the folks on this call. Alex North in particular is the author of FIP60, but really, you know, all of the core devs, all of the implementers, and the broader community for making this upgrade a success. After the FEVM upgrade back in March, I think we all kind of wanted to take a little bit of a break, but it was really important to launch for this to happen successfully. I think it's important for the network health. And I think we can say that we've really achieved that. And I'd like to share a little bit more kind of the motivation for why we did this and the impact that it achieved. As we've discussed in these core devs calls before, market cron in the storage market actor was taking up an increasingly large amount of time in the overall state computation and therefore block validation process. This was a trend that we observed, you know, a few months ago. OpenAFIP that investigated came up with a solution. OpenAFIP that would address it, as well as more longer-term solutions. And basically said, I think we think we're catching this at a good time, but it has the potential to cause major problems. Thankfully, it did not cause major problems, but it did start to cause problems to the network, somewhat compounding with the effect of increased activity as a result of the launch of the FEVM. So at the start of, so we knew that would be the case, and so we wanted to have an upgrade sooner than we were initially thinking, 6 weeks after the FEVM upgrade, and so we're moving ahead with that. But at the start of April, we did start to notice a significant decrease in the number of blocks per chipset, the total win count, the average win count. And as a result of that, several important chain metrics decreased. The revenue for storage providers went down, overall chain throughput went down, and in general, the network was less healthy. It was forkier, stability went down as a result of that. No RPC service providers reported issues as well. So all of that motivated this upgrade, and at some point we made the somewhat difficult call to expedite the time that this would go live on mainnet. And yeah, so I mostly just want to thank everyone for kind of being a part of that overall process. This was not a perfect upgrade, and Afri in particular, but I'm sure we're all aware that there were issues. We did deploy buggy code to our calibration test network, which we never want to do. We were able to kind of patch it, but there was certainly a cost there. There was also just a cost in the quick turnaround time from our various integration partners and so on. And I do think this is a really good opportunity to retro kind of how we as core devs operate. Part of that is how could we have noticed this problem sooner? This was not a problem that sprung up on us. So what can we put in place to make sure that the next time we face a similar problem, because we absolutely will face more challenges like this in the future, how we're aware of it sooner and have these solutions in place quicker. But also how even if we do, when we do have to make kind of faster decisions, how we can do that in a more secure and generally better way. I think one of my personal opinions is I think we made decisions quickly, and I'm grateful to everyone that we were able to move at that pace. But we probably did not get everyone's opinion as much as we should have, especially with decisions like whether we should be expediting the upgrade, how to save the calibration test network, and so on. And I think we will have to continue to move quickly in the future. So the answer is not going to be as simple as just take more time, just take a week to deliberate. But I also would hope but I would like a better answer than, make a tough call and hope that it works out for everyone. But I think I'm really looking forward to a retrospective on this overall network upgrade. I would very much like to have one at the next core devs call. I really want to hear thoughts from, in particular, the Venus and the Forest teams, but also if we could collect thoughts from the community, I think that would be great. So I'm excited to kind of look back at this upgrade. But for now, I'm very pleased to say that the upgrade succeeded on mainnet. In addition to the faster block validation time that I mentioned, it also made our window post more secure through FIB61, which is another major win. And the feedback that we've received for kind of across the board has been really, really good. Storage providers that were reporting major revenue losses are thrilled. Essentially said all the problems went away 24 hours after the upgrade. And it really trickles down from there all the way to all across the community, I should say, to like hackathons where things are participating more, things are running more reliably, to the 7 folks who are kind of working with RPC service providers who reported their latencies dropped like that, and so on. So I think overall this is a really good win for Filecoin. Personally, my node is a lot more stable now, and I'm grateful for that. I don't even run a miner or anything critical like that. So yeah, thank you everyone who worked on this, who identified the problem, made tough calls, worked quickly to make it all happen. And I look forward to looking back at the process more comprehensively and identifying what we can do better the next time. Yeah, I think that's all I had to say, but I'm very interested in hearing other people's perspectives.
Thanks, Ayush. Congrats, everyone. Just looking at time, we have just about 10 minutes to go. And I know we're planning like a more formal retro, but if there are immediate thoughts, we can have them now. I can see your hand up, Molly. Over to you.
Thanks. Yeah, Stephen, as one of the other implementation leads on the call, I'd love your perspective as well on like what went well, what didn't go well. I know we'll probably do more of a retro later, but from my vantage points, at least, this came from, a number of folks vocalizing like, oh, I don't know if we're going to make it to this upgrade. This upgrade is a while in the future. Like, I'm concerned. And there was, identification of, hey, this problem seems like it's accelerating, not just staying constant, but not only had it accelerated before we identified it, but then it seemed like it was continuing to accelerate. And there was concerns that people were going to be missing not just block rewards, but not being able to keep their node in sync for critical operations over the course of the period. And so I wish we'd escalated that a little bit more as like, hey, it seems like we're on track to literally have a major production incident prior to the planned timeline for this network upgrade. Let's all take a beat and figure out and assess whether we think that is accurate and assess what we're going to do about it. Because I think it came a little bit as, hey, we're going to change timelines because we're getting this feedback. Okay, everyone okay? Thanks, bye. It's happening. And it went a little bit fast from in terms of okay, we think there's an upcoming potential significant negative impact on the entire community. All of our RPC providers are in pain. Storage providers are experiencing lower win counts. We are in a bad, unhealthy state. We are concerned it might get even more unhealthy. Let's accelerate getting out of this state. Whereas I think the way that the conversation, for example, the thread about it in core devs was a little bit more like, hey, we looked at the things and we think we need to do this. Okay, this is happening. Versus Stephen, David Henderson, other folks, we think there's a significant challenge here. Can you participate in this upgrade? We think that these are going to be the downsides of accelerating a release where yes, this is going to be painful for node operators because we're going to have to accelerate our timelines. This is going to be painful for exchanges who have, desire longer integration timeframes. But like, here's the pros and cons. Generally, I find the more concrete we can be and open about here are pros and cons on both sides of a decision, the easier it is for us all to, be a part of that decision, understand why we're making it a certain way, and feel like included in the thought process. And I think we didn't do as good of a job as I think we could in doing that together as a network. So that's my reflection. But Stephen, I'd love your thoughts.
Stephen, do you have thoughts? Maybe not. Okay, hopefully we have more in-depth conversations when we have the next retro. Yes, I'll give you a chance. Ayush, maybe some minutes before we wrap it up.
Yeah, I'll be quick. Yeah, I broadly agree with Molly here. When you're moving quickly, some lines get dropped or something that should be said maybe don't get said. But in this case, I do think we and perhaps oh, sorry, Stephen, were you trying to speak?
I think Stephen is frozen.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll quickly say agree with Molly, and I do think that kind of the Lotus team didn't do the best job of externalizing the feedback that we were getting from our users, because it was pretty strongly worded and pretty severe. And I do think that is something that we can do better the next time, as opposed to here's our proposal, does it work, thumbs up, thumbs down, you have a short amount of time to make a decision, because it's obviously more nuanced and complicated than that. The other thing that I wanted to say that I forgot is one of the wins that I think we got from this is the level of testing and kind of analysis that we got from the community and other teams. The critical bug that that was deployed on CalibrationNet was observed by, I think, the Venus team doing some testing, and the broader community kind of swarmed on it, investigated it, had a fix, and so on. And that was incredibly valuable. We would be in a much worse place if that did not happen. And I'm very, very happy about that. It is great to kind of share that responsibility across the community as you would want in a decentralized ecosystem like we have. And as part of the retro, it's obviously bad that we deployed this code on CalibrationNet. So part of the retro will be, why did that happen in the first place? But I also want to retro how we can build that even more, keep this momentum going, because that is how we'll keep Filecoin secure moving forward.
Great job, Venus. Thank you so much, Ayush. Yeah, I think just to wrap it up, thank you so much, everyone, for joining our call. Remember, we also have started our community governance calls. If you have not registered, I will share the link around. It's not a technical, gathering. It's just to talk about governance and how we can improve, governing our ever-growing protocol. And then obviously, if you have additional thoughts, comments, suggestions, always feel free to ping myself and or Caitlin, but obviously register to attend the CGC above. I am beginning to work on a roadmap for sort of governance for the network. And if you have projects you're working on or FIPS you're hoping to land, please feel free to flag them on time so that, I can sort of put that into perspective. Obviously, no rush, but thank you all so much for everyone who flagged their ideas and all the projects they're working on. That's really helpful. Otherwise, thank you all so much for joining, and I'll see you all at Filecoin Core Devs number 58. Goodbye.
Thanks, Lucky. Get some sleep.
I will try.
Thanks, Lucky.
Thank you. Bye.